Welcome everyone, Adam the Woo here. Today's adventure brings us all around the greater Los Angeles area to traverse the filming locations, the spots from the 1984 horror film classic from Wes Craven, A Nightmare on Elm Street. There's a lot to cover. I'm inviting you to join me. Shall you? Watch out, Deacon, there's a dog barking down the corner there.
Sounds ferocious.
Deacon is tagging along. He's going to help me do a little filming, match up some of the spots. Also a big fan of the genre. And how appropriate is there's cobwebs all here along this hedge. Watch out. You're going to be attacked by cobs. Now there is quite a bit of construction, as you can see by this fence on the left, but should still be able to match up this particular location. Nothing really sets the tone of creepiness than a jump roping rhyme that took place right on the side of this hill. The little girls were, I guess in their own way, kind of giving a word of warning. Notice the concrete and brick pillar still there. The child holding the dodgeball just next to it there on the left. And then pulling up here, Johnny Depp was driving his automobile. There are other cars parked here, but he would have stopped right about here. Ogre 805, right about there. And I often wonder, the gentleman on the motorcycle, was he part of the cast? Or was he just a random person driving by that made its way in the shot? He kind of does this like unusual U-turn in the middle of the street, and they just left it in there. Now this angle, they use a little bit different lens zoomed in, but notice the pole there between the 5 trees. It looks like 4, but the second and third one are kind of meshed together. That would be the 5 trees there, and there's that pole. So all the high schoolers kind of standing right about in this section. Before Glenn goes in the school, him and his friends were congregated here at what I like to call the Black Dahlia steps. Looks the same all these years later. You know, minus the green fence line. I also like to look at reverse angles when the camera was facing this direction. The backdrop, once I zoom in, it's pretty much the same. The archways, entrances to that home, identical. It really is too bad this is completely covered. It really is an impressive structure.
Also, later on in the film, Nancy comes running out and she stands right about over here, right after she burns her arm during the dream sequence.
She had to wake herself up.
Yes.
And it worked.
Yes.
But it left a mark.
It did. Ow.
Hey, you want to keep moving on?
Yep.
This asbestos-ridden, abandoned former jail is where the boiler room scenes took place. Freddy's lair. All locked up. It's very ominous looking even from the outside. Imagine being in there and the damp darkness of it. Lots of razor and barbed wire still up, and the old guard station. Judging by the graffiti, it is evident plenty of people have been in here in the past, but as of now, no access. No answer.
Freddy. There. Freddy.
No sign. Thank goodness. From one skyline view to another, the cityscape there in the distance. Established in the late 1800s. This is Evergreen Cemetery. The chapel here on the right. Certainly has quite an aura of ambiance about it. Pinpoint the precise spot of the burial location. Notice the headstones here in the foreground, one with the cross above the marker, and then also this particular angle. Notice on top of that is a very unique, kind of like a broken sculpture. You use that to match this up. Now you are looking at where it took place. Framed up the same. There's that cross right there. And it was a sliding shot. And here is that very unique item on the headstone. All the actors were here, cast and crew all around. I always found it interesting that they featured Rod's funeral and everyone here mourning his passing when, you know, half of those on site considered him to be the murderer. And how come we never see Tina's funeral, who suffered a very horrific fate? Just past that clearing is where I just was. This was a tough one to find. Quite a bit of wandering took place. The chapel, the back side of the chapel, straight ahead. So if you decide to pay a visit and cannot hunt it down, just use this as your coordinates. Trekking back across the property where Nancy was sitting on these very steps at the chapel while her father was approaching from this direction. That monument could be seen as he walked towards where I'm standing currently. She then sat in the passenger seat of her mother's vehicle, which was parked here on the side of the Coulter McReynolds monument, and then drove off that direction. Just to give a little frame of reference with these screenshots, here's the one, the other, and the third. Named the Ivy Chapel. I was noticing even back in 1984, some water damage was starting to rear its head. In current day, it has really taken a foothold and chipped away there at the bottom two steps. She was sitting on the third.
Ready to get out of here? Let's do it. Gotta keep moving on. Still a lot to see.
In reality, the police station is a public library. When she walks up the hill in the dream sequence, between the pole on the right and the pillar next to the stairs, on that incline is where she went up to look into the jail cell. Heading that direction, but first, I wanted to walk up these very stairs where, on a number of occasions, different characters stepped up, the camera facing the opposite way. Naturally, this would be a different perspective heading into what was the police station. Unmistakable architecture, including these items on the side of the wall, which can be seen very prominently. Example, case in point, taking the same footsteps, the pathway This is the window, the second to the right. She would have peeked down in there. That's awesome. Notice on the right that little indentation carving in the rockwork. Let's move back the leaves. There's that little indentation I was just referring to. And there's the window. I am very happy to report this one makes me truly excited. A classic moment where she's calling out for her boyfriend still exists. I did not realize that was the case, but all the markings on the side of the building just to the right of where those windows are. Just imagine this fence line here that has been placed being removed back in the early 80s, and the camera would have been tilted standing here in the foliage, and Freddy Krueger was behind a bush popping out at her. Wow. I'm cramming my body through this section. I believe I can get nearly the correct angle. Right about there. Pretty dang close.
Where did Adam go? Are you here?
You wouldn't know it at first, but one of the most iconic structures in all of scary movies is right off Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, down this road. It's incredible to think just how much took place, not only in the yard itself of this home, but also on the porch, through the door, and up in the windows, up to the right, just above the archway, the second floor. The first window from the middle on the right was Nancy's room. In another scene, when she's running from Freddy, she peeks her head out and yells across the street through the first window to the gap there on the left. And then right down here, Krueger pops up and they have a little wrestling moment right in there, that very portion of the grass. Between these two trees where Glenn pops out, where she's trying to alert him, wondering if he's still awake, watching her during the dream sequence. Just here on the right, he kind of pops in and lets her know he's still around. And speaking of, directly catty corner is where Johnny Depp's character would have resided. Very top left-hand side, that door that's also a window, that's where he was on the phone looking across the street at his girlfriend. Screenshot of his window there. The lights are on. And who honestly could forget when the mom gets yanked through the top of the door opening? That definitely had to hurt. More rhyming and jump roping in the yard. Notice the two trees with the branches kind of forking upward, both of them to the right. These are the two I am referring to. The one here on the left has had one of the branches removed. If you just kind of pan around, the girls would have been right here in this patch of grass. That's where they were doing their skipping and singing. Very distinct looking one there across the way. It's like 8 trunks emerging upward, which obviously means Glenn's car was right here in this spot. There's that tree with all the trunks.
I'm your boyfriend, Norman.
Arrive now on Glendon Avenue in Venice. See where this plywood has been placed. This is where Nancy was meandering down this sidewalk and she witnessed the arrest taking place at the end of the road. She walks past this very door, 1622, and you'll notice right over that wall there is an archway. See it? A little bit clearer perspective back in the 80s before the partition was built. Right there, just to the left behind it. As she continues to meander, she notices a very interesting character watching from this corner. Okay, you're doing a good job. You're playing the part. I don't remember him having any lines. He just kind of just like looks, he just kind of just stares. So just stare. Your motivation is to just stare. They got their man, took him down right in the center of the street. I believe that directional arrow is the same one from way back then. Most likely. At least 3.5 decades later. 35 years plus, that signage has been there. And notice the webbing that has been created, glistening in the wind. It's a nice touch. Just a couple miles over, Millwood Avenue and Electric Court. A place that needs no introduction. Well, once you see it, you'll know it. I bet since then it's been difficult to get a good night's slumber inside that home. Tina's home. And as incredible as the front of the building is, it's what's around back that really has me enamored. Looking eerily familiar. This is it. Just to put this in perspective, the shadow being cast there with his hat against that wooden frame door behind the trash cans. Look at the wood slats of the door. Precisely the same ones. There are two sets. The one the shadow was cast upon is this one. As I take a couple steps back, you can see where she turned this corner. These concrete stairs are the same. She was walking this direction. How unusual are the ornaments upon this building here, which was also on site during filming.
Oh, please, God.
That's me whistling, that's not the baby. Fret not. A little bit of the architecture has changed just a bit. That house is, looks slightly different than it did back then. But that's where Johnny Depp ate his non-biodegradable container-filled fast food meal. She, however, was a little more enamored with the book she was reading. One thing I was noticing when they did the close-up angles, it was not up here on this area of the bridge, because notice the little screw markings into the steel and the wood topping. So when she places the cover of the book here, it was either on a sound stage or somewhere else, totally not on this angled style bridge support. Also painted a totally different color, a bluish hue, as opposed to this white version. Pretty interesting, and screwless in the close-up angles. Interesting, the things that you can notice, especially like I'm noticing this is not wanting to focus. Okay, there it goes. Deacon, do your best Johnny Depp impression.
I'm so mad my hair's not poofy.
That's good.
Eat this imaginary burger?
Yeah, chow down. Did you pull that out of a non-biodegradable container?
Now I want a cheeseburger.
You just had an imaginary one. Isn't that enough?
Not really.
One of the last spots of the day, or I should say evening, now that nightfall has reared its head, is the interiors of this school were used for the hallway scenes and a few others. Obviously the school is closed and doors are locked, but still wanted to swing by. And even though during hours we probably would not have been able to wander around inside there. However, it appears as if you can get a little peek indoors by looking through this glass door frame. Oh yes, this looks very familiar. Looks eerily familiar. No running in the halls.
That's gonna do it for today. If you're new here, please subscribe by doing so.
Dude,
and
Adam, you don't think that they don't know it's you?
You can tell it's me under here.
A little bit.
Make sure you check out Deacon's channel. I will put a link in the description box to his videos. Go tell him I said hello and give him a...
There you go, Freddy Krueger.
The vlog is over. Nothing to see here. Just a slightly overweight man dressing as Freddy.
Are you here? We lost the hat.
My Indiana Jones hat.
Okay, let me do one more, just so I get the whole house in it.
I'm your boyfriend.
Can I get a picture with you now?
Oh, please, God.
Channeling my inner
Yeah,
evil.
yeah,
Channeling it?
yep. I fell asleep. I'm really glad Adam invited me, but I gotta get home. What the heck? I brought this out in my dream.